I think we're ready, William.
Good morning. Welcome to the Planning Hearing Officer hearing for March 31st, 2021. My name is Vilia Zamaitis, and I will be conducting the hearing as hearing officer. Due to the COVID-19 novel coronavirus and the health recommendations from the LA County Health Department, this hearing is being conducted virtually with no members of the public present. The public is encouraged to watch and participate from the safety of their homes to practice social distancing. The meeting can be viewed on local cable TV and is being streamlined online on the city's website at www.glendaleca.gov. For public comments and questions during the meeting, please call 818-937-8100. Again, that's 818-937-8100. City staff will be submitting the questions and comments in real time to the appropriate person. The hearing will proceed as follows. I will read the description of the application request. I will then read the reports received from any other city departments and other letters or communications from interested parties. The case planner will make a brief overview of the case, give analysis, and make a recommendation. The applicant will then be connected in by telephone or WebEx, stating both name and address, and will be asked to present the case within 15-minute time limit. Others in support of or in opposition to the application and interested parties will be connected for a 3-minute testimony, and again, clearly stating their name and address. Lastly, the applicant will be given the opportunity to make closing comments if desired, in response to testimonies given by any preceding speakers. The hearing will then be closed and the case taken under submission. If evidence presented in the application and at the hearing meets the required findings set forth in the municipal code, then the project can either be approved or approved with conditions. If the findings in fact are not evident, then the request will be denied. After the hearing, the decision will be prepared in writing and will be in the form of a letter sent to the applicant and to all persons who responded to the public notice, either by speaking at this hearing or by submitting written responses. The date of the decision will be the date appearing on the letter. Records of decisions for all projects will be posted online on the Planning Division's website. Under the appeals provision of Title 30, Chapter 3062 of the Glendale Municipal Code, the decision may be appealed to the Planning Commission within 15 days of the date of the decision. Anyone wishing to appeal must contact the case planner to obtain forms and information regarding the appeal process and submittal. Notification of this hearing was accomplished by the use of public notices, which were mailed to all property owners and occupants located within 500 feet of the subject property. The site was physically posted, and the notice was placed in the local newspaper. I'd like to inform everyone that the official proceedings of the Planning Hearing Officer's hearing are being televised live and may be viewed online on the city's website. Today we have 2 cases on the agenda. The first one is actually being taken off calendar and will be renoticed for a later date. This would be the case for a parking reduction permit, case number PPRP 201-0935 for the property located at 821 East Colorado Street. Again, this particular case is being taken off calendar and will be renoticed at a later date. The second item on today's agenda is a parking reduction permit, case number PPRP 201-7608 for the project site located at 306 East Harvard. And that was for 306 East Harvard, also known as 200 South Louise Street. The parking reduction permit is to allow for the reduction of 8 parking spaces. There are 12 provided spaces on site and 20 parking spaces required in conjunction with the demolition of an existing at-grade parking lot and the construction of a new 3-story, 14-unit, 6,263 square foot residential building featuring 2 affordable units and 12 market rate units above a 1-level subterranean parking garage. The new project will be attached to the existing 2-story, approximately 6,500 square foot office building that is to remain located on a 12,000 square foot lot, on a 12,000 square foot lot zoned DSP East Broadway District. The proposed project is exempt from CEQA review as a Class 32 Infill Development Projects exemption pursuant to Section 15332 of the state CEQA guidelines. That said, I will quickly review the comments. Among the various departments who submitted comments, first one being the building and safety section. And they provided a total of 13 comments. These are standard conditions for any type of new construction. Comments were also submitted by the Glendale Water and Power, the Water Engineering Division, and the Electrical Engineering Division. And again, these are all standard conditions as you would find for new construction, nothing out of the ordinary. There were no comments from our Code Enforcement Division. There were a total of 11 comments from the Fire Department. And again, these are all standard conditions for new construction, such as fire sprinkling systems, backflow prevention, water flow, gurney access, and emergency access walkways and such. We received comments from our Community Services and Parks Department. This is in regards to the Public Use Facilities Development Impact Fee Ordinance. So the project would be required to pay these fees to offset impacts on parks, recreation, and library facilities. So again, the developer is requested to contact them regarding the development impact fee forms at the time of building permit submittal. We received a total of 12 comments from the land development section from the Public Works Engineering section. These all are standard comments with regards to any improvements in the public right-of-way, a sewage capacity increase fee payment, and the like. We received a number of comments from the traffic section, and it appears that those have been addressed and will be discussed by the case planner in regards to any parking studies. Received also comments from our Community Development Housing Division with regards to since this project is an affordable housing project and is seeking a density bonus, which I believe the case planner will discuss during the presentation. But again, there were a number of comments made. And in regards to the inclusionary housing fee issue. And last but not least, there were also comments from the urban forester regarding street trees that were just standard part. So with that said, I would like to turn the hearing over to the case planner, Mr. Dennis Joe, for your staff presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Zematitis. Just give me a second here to set up my presentation. So once again, this item involves a park production permit located at 306 East Harvard, also known as 200 South Louise Street. Pardon me. Shaded in yellow is a subject property at the southeast corner of Harvard and Louise. It's approximately 12,000 square feet, zone DSP East Broadway. The site's currently developed with an approximately 6,500 square foot office building with a 14-space at-grade parking lot. The project is to demolish the 14-space at-grade parking lot and to construct a new 3-story 15-unit residential building which will feature 2 affordable units. The existing commercial building shaded will remain. Below the 14-unit building is a 1-level subterranean parking garage, which will be improved with 12 parking spaces. And just to briefly go over the zoning code requirements for this project, a half space per bedroom is required for density bonus, and this is for at least 11% very low income units. As a result, for residential units for this project, 7 spaces are required. And the zoning code requires 2 parking spaces for every 1,000 square foot of general offices. And as a result, 13 spaces for the existing general offices is required. So a total would be a total of 8 parking spaces is required. Now the applicant proposes 12 parking spaces within the subterranean garage, which breaks down to be 7 spaces for the residential, which satisfies the half space per bedroom or density bonus for the residential units, and 5 spaces for the existing general office. As a result, the applicant's requesting a 8-space reduction for the general office. Just to quickly go over the background of this project, once again, this is an affordable SB 1818 density bonus law project, which 2 units are for very low income families. As a result, the project has 2 concessions, which the first one will be open space. Now, the second concession that they are allowed is not being exercised, which technically the second concession could request to eliminate all residential parking spaces. However, the applicant has elected not to go down this route and proceeded with the subject parking reduction permit for the office. And just to briefly go over findings, the parking reduction chapter of the GMC requires only 1 set of findings to be made, only 1 or more. It is making findings under subsection C and supplementing it with additional findings under subsection D. And just to briefly go over findings for subsection C, in summary, a parking reduction can be justified based on the documented mass transit use characteristics of the patrons and employees of the use. Approximately 1/3 of a mile away at the corner of Brand Boulevard and Broadway, there's a transit-rich crossing, which is serviced by Metro buses 92, 180, 181, 183, 201, and the 780, as well as the Glendale Lines routes 3, 4, and 11. And according to each respective schedules, this intersection is serviced with a 15-minute headway during peak commute hours. Given the frequency of the service interval, the intersection is defined as a major transit stop by the California Public Resources Code. Moving on to supplemental findings D, there are 3 findings, which I'll briefly go over. The first one being that the parking need for the land use is not as great for similar land uses. The second one is the intent of the parking regulation is met. And 3, sufficient parking would be provided to serve the intended and potential future uses of the subject parcel. The existing office is occupied single tenant, consists of 8 employees, which all the owner and the office workers either live in Glendale or live within the general facility of the area. 25% of the employees, which equates to 2 of the 8 employees, currently take public transit to the office. The applicant prepared a parking count, which was done pre-COVID for the existing office, which observed the existing business utilization of 14-space at-grade parking lot on a typical weekday between the hours of 6 a.m. and 4 p.m. Weekends were not counted because the office is closed on Saturdays and Sundays. This parking count discovered that the peak parking demand between the hours of 10 and 4 p.m. Discovered that 4 of the 14 at-grade parking spaces were being used. As a result, there's an 8-space surplus during the observed hour. I'm sorry, 9 spaces. Even though the parking count indicates there will be a surplus of parking for the office, the applicant has implied to incorporate monthly passes at the Marketplace Garage to offset the requested parking reduction. The Marketplace Garage, which is about 0.1 mile away, has a supply of 1,078 parking spaces. As you can see in the map on this slide here, just showing you the general location and the proximity of the Marketplace Garage. The Public Works Department had a downtown parking analysis conducted in 2019, which is pre-COVID, for all the parking garages and service lots. Specifically, the findings of this analysis included the Marketplace Garage had a weekday peak occupancy at 75% at 6 p.m., which equates to a surplus of 270 parking spaces during the weekday. There was sufficient in the Marketplace Garage for the 8 months. As a result, sufficient parking would be provided to serve the intended use and potential future uses. Given the transit use characteristics of the existing general office employees, the proximity of the site of a transit-rich intersection, and the applicant's willingness to purchase 8 monthly parking passes at the Marketplace Garage to offset deficiency, staff believes the request will be supported by finding and supplemented with finding D. This concludes staff's presentation, and I am available for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Joe. With that said, Rodney Kahn, the applicant.
Good morning, Mr. Matias. My name is Rodney Kahn. My offices are located here in the city of Glendale. And I just want to start off by saying a few times during that presentation, my internet kind of froze up. If at some time it does during my presentation, please let me know, or I may stop my video, which somehow helps it sometimes as well. My offices, as I mentioned, are here in the city of Glendale. And as Dennis Joe mentioned in his presentation, it's right in the heart of the downtown area. We're across the street from the Glendale Central Library and Park, and also mentioned, we're in very close proximity to the Marketplace parking structure, which contains approximately 1,100 public parking spaces. What I'd like to do is supplement what Mr. Joe said in his presentation. I'd like to go over the findings, and I'd like to share with you some information that I also discovered. First of all, the project, as called out, is a mixed-use building. It consists of 14 residential dwelling units and also maintaining the approximately 6,500 square foot general office use. There will also be a new subterranean parking garage constructed of approximately 12 parking spaces. Also, this is a density bonus housing project. So we do have 2 affordable, very low income units as part of the overall project. The existing general office building is occupied by the owner user. So he's the owner of the business, he's the owner of the building, and he's also the developer of the project. The general office building is administrative offices for his healthcare consulting firm. There are no customers that come to the facility. There are no trucks that are deliveries that come to the facility or leave from the facility. As mentioned, the hours of operation are roughly from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday, and Saturday and Sunday, the business is closed. There are a total of eight employees that all live in the city of Glendale, all live in close proximity to the building. So this is an ideal situation for this parking reduction request. 5 parking spaces allocated for general office use. The remainder of the parking will be for the residential, which meets the parking requirements for a density bonus housing project. These two uses, residential and commercial, are very complementary and could easily share parking if needed. During the day when the general offices are busiest, as was highlighted in the parking study, many of the residential tenants will be at work. And in the evening and weekends, when the general offices are closed, the residential tenants will be at home and can park in the unused commercial spaces. I mentioned about our proximity to the parking structure, and as Mr. Joe pointed out, we're also in very close proximity to the major transit routes. So public transportation is easily accessible, also carpooling, bicycling, and in this case, walking, because some of the employees live nearby this facility. The intent of the parking regulations, as you know, is to provide sufficient off-street parking for land use or land uses so that the surrounding area is not negatively impacted. As stated, we will be securing off-site parking at the marketplace parking structure for the 8 spaces. We also have a very low demand office use with a limited number of employees that will not increase. How the existing parking demand is currently met and how will that continue to be? There's a limited number of employees, and as we have learned during this COVID time, there's social distancing requirements. There's also certain barriers that have been installed for the employees. But also important is flexible work hours, flexible work schedule. So now you have some of the employees that are able to telecommute different times or different hours of the day that previously we didn't see in general office uses. And that will continue even after, hopefully, this COVID situation becomes more under control. As Mr. Joe has pointed out, that there was a parking count done, and it was on 2 separate occasions, on a Tuesday and a Thursday. And on both occasions, I took the worst case scenario. There was ample parking on site that would be available. In fact, our architect, who's also on the line, his offices are about a half a block away from this site. So I'm by this site frequently. I would say at least a few times a week. I have never had any problem finding open accessible parking on site to either visit or as I just drive by. The parking requirements established in the zoning code is actually greater than what will actually be needed. The zoning ordinance determines parking in part based on the square footage of a building and not on the demand that is created or not created. In this case, I've already highlighted, it's a single tenant. It's a low number of employees. They get no deliveries. There's no customers coming to the building. The new parking spaces that are being constructed will have the necessary width, length, and turning radius to maneuver safely on site. The driveway and circulation patterns will meet City of Glendale traffic and transit. The site is safe and follows good traffic engineering principles. In conclusion, the location of this mixed-use project is right where it should be. It's in very close proximity, literally a few hundred feet away from the marketplace parking structure. It's along major transit routes. It's an ideal situation for this office tenant. We've reviewed the 12 conditions of approval, which includes securing these 8 monthly parking passes from the marketplace parking structure, and we agree to comply with all of them. I will conclude my remarks, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Khan. Mr. Joe. Would you please elaborate on the 0.5 parking spaces per unit for this affordable housing project? There are parking concessions, obviously, for density bonus projects.
Yes.
But would you elaborate, please?
Yes, per the density bonus section of the Millennium Municipal Code, for affordable projects exercised by the SB 1818 density bonus law, the zoning code automatically allows them to request, and this doesn't count as a concession, half parking space per bedroom for 11%, at minimum 11%, very low income housing. So the parking units are automatic. Well, they can request a reduction to be at half space for the residences only. So I think that just to answer your question, that's what the GMC states.
And this reduction for 0.5 spaces per unit would be part of the density bonus review and approval. Is that correct? That's not an automatic given at this point in time.
That's correct. The GMC states that the applicant can request a half space per bedroom, and it doesn't count towards one of the concessions. One of the two that they're granted for the level for the level of affordability they're providing.
Okay, and the project, because it provides 2 affordable housing units, essentially 11% of the project, they're granted 2 concessions. And so at this point, they're only utilizing 1 concession. This would be for the publicly accessible open space. They have 1 concession that is still left on the table. Correct?
That is correct. Okay. As stated in my presentation,
yes,
it's not being exercised, but they do have the option to request 0 parking for the residences. But to go down a more palatable route, they'd rather ask for this parking reduction and reduce the parking from the requirement, supplement it with monthly passes at the marketplace garage.
So just to clarify, the monthly parking spaces in the marketplace would be solely for the commercial tenants, correct?
That is correct.
To offset their parking.
As designed right now within the 12-space parking garage, 7 will be for the residences, and that would be by the half space per bedroom for the residential units. Now, once again, the composition for the dwelling units, they're all 1 bedroom or studios.
Thank you. I actually have a few questions for the applicant. And unfortunately, it looks like he is having internet problems. There he is. 1 second. Mr. Khan, can you hear us now? Mr. Khan? I'm not sure if he has been able to connect or not.
Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, great. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I have a few questions for you right now, if you don't mind.
Please.
The first being, as was just stated, you have 2 concessions for the project, given the level of affordability provided.
That's
you
correct.
are utilizing 1 for the open space, and you
That's
have
correct.
1 that's remaining.
Mm-hmm.
Why didn't you apply for a concession regarding this parking reduction as opposed to a parking reduction permit?
There's really 2 reasons. First of all, I think what was happening was we would have to allocate all of the parking on site for commercial use. 0 parking spaces for the residential. And I think that that was not a precedent that wanted to be established either from us or from the city to have 0 parking spaces as a concession. Were you able to hear me?
Yes, thank you. I didn't know if you were finished or if unfortunately you cut out, but it appears that you were done.
Right.
Yes?
Yes, I am now.
All right, thank you.
Whether I wanted to be or not, I'm done.
Thanks. Now, the off-site parking spaces that you are providing in the marketplace parking garage as monthly passes,
Yes.
was there a discussion with our traffic and transportation section with regards to actually leasing these spaces as opposed to having monthly passes?
Yes. And their preference was for us to have the monthly passes. So we are following through on what the city's traffic and transportation and the city staff recommended. And that's why this is also listed as a condition.
If, because right now the project site, the commercial tenant is one single tenant
Correct.
with a limited number of employees, and that is the
Yes.
general office.
Right.
I believe you mentioned that the property owner owns the building and is also the developer of the affordable housing project. Is that correct?
Yes. And he's also the owner of the business.
He's also the owner of the business. Okay.
Correct.
So that would have been an issue had he not been the actual property owner and just a tenant space, because given the temporary nature of a business that might come in and out, or that might change, because in this case, the downtown specific plan allows for interchanges of uses
Right.
and subdivision of commercial tenant spaces.
Right.
So I'm assuming that you are aware that if the property owner ever sells the property, any new type of tenants would have to go through the parking reduction permit process all over again, because this would be solely tied to the existing current use, given its one tenant occupancy and its limited number of employees.
Yes, we're aware of that.
Okay, so that will be tied in to any conditions of approval that may or may not be imposed if the parking reduction permit is granted. So,
Okay.
and I'm asking all these questions because I have been made aware we have no callers, and I just want to double check to make sure that we have no callers still online. Okay, so we still have no callers, and so that is why I'm asking these questions ahead of, at this point in time, because we do not have any callers to do so. Public hearing is open, and I'm just waiting for any last minute callers that might like to join us to comment on this parking reduction permit. I'm receiving the sign that no, there are still no callers present. Mr. Khan, do you have any closing remarks that you would like to add?
Sure. The only closing remarks I'd like to add
Unfortunately, it seems we are unable to hear you again. Mr. Khan? None? Okay, I do not have any questions. Mr. Soroyan, the project's architect, is on with us as well. Do you have any comments that you'd like to add at this point? None? I see him shaking his head no. Well, with that said,
Ms. Titus, can you hear me?
Oh, yes, now we can.
That's okay. What I'll do is I'll just conclude my remark. The internet freezes up again. But I think in terms of the project overall, I think it's very good use, very good location, And we appreciate you considering this application here today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I will be taking the matter under submission and rendering a decision within a week or two. And we appreciate you attending and listening into the public hearing officers hearing of March 31st, 2021. The hearing is now closed. Thank you very much.